way. You don't want it to be like not safe in an insecure way, but you want it to be on edge, on fire, that kind of feeling, that really, because that's what makes it one of a kind and it captures you. So but first of all, before you do that, you have to know what the rules are, because then you know how to bend them and sometimes break them a little bit, right? Because without rules, then it's just a mess. It's no longer just freedom. It's actually just a mess. So I think the most important thing first is to finding out, okay, let's say a particular piece. You're playing Bach, or you're playing Mozart, or Mendelssohn, is to find out what the character of the composer is, and what the character of the piece is, and then you can amplify those characters. That's what I would call risk, that you exaggerate, almost exaggerate, I would say amplify is a better word, those characteristics, so that you really make the performance on fire, so to speak. So, because you can always add more, but where do you add more? That's the question. You don't just add more everywhere. And I was trying to say that earlier today as well. It's where do you push for the note? And so where do you aim for? Those all had to come from rules as well. And then you can have the freedom and the sense of, okay, how do you push a performance? So does that kind of answer the question a little bit?
Yeah.
Or does that create another question?
As musicians, sometimes it's hard for us to put ourselves out there as well as risk ourselves. Be vulnerable to the audience. And
oh yeah, incredibly.
And as a performer, like how do you deal with that? How do you make yourself vulnerable? Allow yourself to be vulnerable.
Right, because you're letting a group of strangers into your kind of world. Especially, it's one thing to play with bravado, a piece that's just very virtuosic, and then you're just like, yeah. But then sometimes it's it requires a quiet moment, and those moments are the most difficult, because not only do you have to let everyone in and show that you're absolutely. Sometimes it's like, one part that comes to mind is the chaconne, the middle part. In the beginning it starts very... But then in the middle, it kind of goes to this like angelic section. Is like... So it kind of continues, and you kind of have to, it's really hard to create such a moment, especially when, for so many factors, if the hall's not like, perfect acoustics, like in here it's pretty hard because it's a funny acoustic, it's kind of dry, but it's not dry, it's like really direct as well. And that can make you feel even more naked, because you're just like, and then, oh, it's not sounding like how I wanted to, but I think that there's, one thing I learned was that there's a fine line between confidence and faking it, I guess. It's really a fine line, and you can, definitely on stage, one or the other. That's you need that. You need one or the other. You need something that. You need to either be confident or you need to seem like you're confident. But that definitely makes the difference in a performance. That's what elevates it, because And sometimes it's difficult. Like when I was a student, I would often try to imagine myself as somebody else, like one of, like, let's say Jascha Heifetz or Maxime Bengrove or someone like David Oistrakh or someone who ever played the favorite recording of mine of that piece. And I'd listen to it and then I try to reimagine myself as that person, because, you know, Ray Chen might screw up, but, you know, Maxime Bengrove is not going to screw up. So I'd be like, okay, here I go. And I'd be like, wow, yeah, I can. And then it's like you create this confidence, and then you go and you try and figure out, okay, but in the back of your mind, you know it's still you. And then once you build it up and do it enough times, you're like, but that was actually me. and then, but you know, but then you're still not super confident in yourself, so you say, but for my next few performances, I'll just pretend that I'm Maxime Bengrove, or I'll just pretend that I'm Jascha Heifetz, because, you know, it just feels safer. It's way easier to pretend to be somebody else than to be yourself sometimes. I know, that sounds awful, right? I should be encouraging everyone to be themselves. But you will be. Eventually you will be. And it's okay. I think it's okay in the beginning to pretend that you're somebody else, because it gives you the confidence. And that's what you need. Because without the confidence, you'll never want to be yourself. Like, you'll never even want to perform. And you'll never enjoy it. And at least by, you know, like kind of reimagining yourself, it's okay. Like you'll at least be able to enjoy performances. So.
Great, thank you. And could you just speak a little bit about how you came to the violin, you're growing up, and what made you decide to become a violinist?
So I started violin. I was born in Taiwan, and my family and I moved to Australia when I was 4 months old. And I've been living in the States for 10 years. I moved over when I was 16. I kind of lost my Australian accent, but although I can definitely bring it out, this is what I sound like when I'm back at home. And yeah, I mean, I lived there for 16 years, and it's been yeah. Every time I speak with my mate from back at home, it's always this way, but. Then when I'm speaking with Americans, I like to pretend I'm an American too. Because honestly, I feel a closer connection with the person that I'm speaking to if I'm speaking with them in their accent. So sometimes it'll be really funny when I'm speaking to somebody with broken English, and I'll be like, oh, so we want to have lunch tomorrow. Okay, lunch tomorrow. No problem. Okay. And then, like, especially on the phone. One time, a friend of mine walked in, and I was speaking to somebody who had a really strong Italian accent. It was like, Araya, oh, we are so welcome, and you are to come to Italy. And I was like, oh yes, I come to Italy, no problem. You speak with me, you know, we speak. You know, it's like, and they were like, just like, and you know, it just happens naturally. I think maybe it's the musicians here, but anyway. So I grew up in Australia, and I started violin by, you know, when I was 4 years old. I had a toy guitar, and then one day I decided to put the guitar in my chin and together with a chopstick, then to play this new instrument. So my parents got me a violin for my 4th birthday. That's how it went. And I did Suzuki Method in the beginning, and that was really enjoyable. I did group lessons, and yeah, every week we would sit in a circle, and the teacher would say, who wants to play a new piece? And I would always be one of the first who'd be like, me, I want to play a new piece. And I loved performing. That's where my love for performing began. Some might just say that I'm an incredible show-off, and you know, that's fine. I guess I am. But there's nothing wrong with that. You know, but I love performing, and I always seeked out every opportunity I could get to play the violin in front of people. And that's what I practice for. I hate practicing, by the way, so if you hate practicing too, That's very normal. If you love practicing, you're just weird. But I honestly, no, yeah, right. Oh no, oh no. But you know what? Just don't walk away yet, because practicing is important. I realized that I love performing so much that in order to perform well, I had to practice, right? I couldn't, I tried, trust me, I tried to not practice and still perform well. It didn't work. So that very quickly sunk in, and you know, together, I mean, I think every kid, every parent always asks, oh, how much did your mother or father, you know, push you to practice? And you know, I'll be honest, without my mother, I probably would not have practiced a single second. You know, I probably would have played for like 2 minutes and then been like, whatever. And I probably wouldn't be a violinist today. No, most definitely wouldn't be. But, you know, in terms of, okay, you can't, I'm going to lock this room and lock you in and practice. No, that didn't happen. It was more like reverse psychology. It was more like, oh, you don't want to play violin? You don't want to practice? Well, it's okay, you can quit. We can save money. And it was like, oh my gosh, you know, the thought of not playing violin would be so terrifying that I would immediately go and practice. So that was a much kind of healthier psychological way of getting me to practice, because then it became my choice to practice, not my mother's. But you know, she was always there to remind me, have you practiced today? How many hours have you practiced today? Oh, no, you have to practice. Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, but it's just always, that's just how it is. You know, no kid is going to like wake up and, I mean, I met one kid actually who said she like practices an hour and a half before she goes to bed and wakes up early in the morning, practices 2 hours, and she's only like 9 years old. But I mean, really, that doesn't happen to normal people. Like 99.99% of the population, that doesn't happen with. And so if you don't like practicing, it's okay. You can still, look, I turned out all right? Like, it's okay. I mean, and to this day, I still hate practicing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, any questions?
Can you tell us about the violin you're holding there?
Oh yeah, this is a Stradivarius. It's made in 1715, and it's named after a very famous Hungarian violinist called Joseph Joachim. Now Joachim was probably in his day the greatest violinist. He was around the same time as Brahms, who dedicated his violin concerto to, as well as Bruch, and also Schumann. Schumann dedicated his violin concerto to Mr. Joachim as well. So here I am, 300 years exactly after the day it was made, to be holding it in my hands. It's quite an honor, of course, and also quite scary at the same time, because I always feel slightly inadequate, and also in the back of my mind there's always this voice that says, well, do you think that you are the best this violin has ever had? Do you really think so? And you know, the answer's always like, well, do I really want to know the answer? I don't know, but that's and that can be you know, very, very troubling as well. But honestly, it also sounds pretty good. So I try, you know, you kind of forget all that as soon as you start playing. And what I think that I've learned, also, it doesn't mean that you have to have a Strat to play well. I think that it's very kind of an educational experience to play on one. But nowadays, I honestly enjoy. It's much more fun to play a modern instrument, which I do a lot. I was talking about this last night with a few of your faculty members, and modern instruments today are being made, I mean, just as superbly as Strads were back in their day. I think it's just a matter of, you know, let's wait for 200, 300 years, and after they've been played and really kind of aged, and let's compare them then, because I think that there'll be something else. I have 2 modern instruments that I play on a lot, and I like to switch them around. Sometimes I don't tell people that I'm playing on my modern instrument, and I go up and, you know, with professional orchestra, like I was with Montreal Symphony and also in New Orleans as well. with Louisiana Symphony earlier this last month, and I was playing, and people come up to me and say, "Wow, your violin's amazing. What is it?" And I'll sometimes say, "Ah, yes, it's my Strad," even though it wasn't. And they were like, "Oh, wow, I knew it. It has a special sound." Or like I'll say, "Oh, it's a modern," and then they'll be like, "Wow, are you serious?" But I think it goes to show that most people listen with their eyes rather than with their ears, and oftentimes they'll have a preconceived notion in their minds about how a violin should sound. So I think that it's important to know that, it's important to play on a lot of different instruments, so you have the option of knowing what kinds of possibilities are there, but then in the end, it's all you. You should know that. As Heifetz said, when a lady said, "Oh, your violin sounds so great," funny, I don't hear anything. His violin and said that. So that. I think that's one of the things that is really important and good to keep in mind. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
Do you have to attach your shoulder rest?
Do I have to? Oh, my shoulder rest. Yeah, it's I have to attach it. It's actually glued on, so I can take it off. And I made this myself, and you can just put it anywhere you want, and it's with a special type of glue that doesn't harm the varnish. So it's pretty cool. It's not a magnet, because then the magnet would need the other side. I'd have to put the other side of the magnet in there. But yeah, it's sticky. So I guess, just imagine, never mind, don't imagine anything. Any other questions? We had one over there. Yes? Is that my modern violin?
Your mom.
My mom's violin? No, it's not. I wish it were my mother's violin, because then one day it would be mine, but it's not my mother's violin. It actually belongs to a foundation in Japan called the Nippon Music Foundation, and they have 17 of Strads and Del Jesus, and they've loaned it to me. I've been fortunate enough that when loaned is not I pay for it. They just have scouted me out and said, "Here, you can use this instrument, and we'll pay for the insurance," which can be, quite hefty. The insurance alone can be anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000 every year, and so that can become quite a burden as well. But luckily it's all covered by the foundation. So pretty lucky for that.
There's one more question.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
So what do you do if you're not really satisfied with your performance?
What do I do? Well, after I finish crying and having my ice cream, I kind of think to myself, okay, you always keep thinking. You can't stop thinking about what went wrong, right? That's always what happens after a performance that you're not satisfied with. And for me, it's exactly the same. It's no different. I kind of actually start practicing, and I cover those moments that I should have, or I think I could have not missed. And I'll just practice that and hope for the best the next time. But it's important to really tackle those moments immediately so that they don't become a psychological barrier in your mind. So when you mess up a passage in a performance, it's usually because somewhere in your practicing you created this seed. I believe you created a seed of this thing that made it, and it grew into. You might not have noticed it, but it's like a weed, and it just grows into this thing that trips you over sometimes, or sometimes you might not be tripped over, but it's usually due to bad practicing. So when you practice, you have to be sure that every moment you're focused, that you're actually practicing for the performance. Because if you're not, like think about the way you practice. You're probably at home in your pajamas, in your room, like in, you know, the floor is carpet. You're not wearing shoes or something like that. And you're just practicing. You might even be like strolling around or something like that, right? And you're walking around and you're practicing. Or you might be sitting down. Suddenly, you're performing. It's a completely different environment. It's not your bedroom anymore. You're no longer in your pajamas. You're wearing, you know, for girls, a pretty dress. For guys, might be even wearing a jacket. You're constrained. You're, you know, the air conditioning's on full blast, or maybe there's no air conditioning and it's in summer. You know, all these different factors. There's, not to mention the people, all the strangers that are sitting in front of you, listening. They're nothing compared to what you practice. I mean, it's not at all the same environment. So it's normal that suddenly when you think, oh, why did my practicing go out the window? Well, it's because you didn't actually practice for that situation. You practiced for a whole nother situation. So you have to, what I encourage is what people do is find performance opportunities. Try to emulate, try to copy that situation and try to recreate that in a similar situation at home, or go to you know, a school, your school where you can practice in a large room setting at least. So to narrow down the differences that are going to occur between your normal practicing and your performances. Because most students, let's face it, don't have that many performance opportunities. But I certainly didn't. But you have to try and find as many as you can. And competitions are the same thing. You know, I see them as performance opportunities. You know, of course, it's disappointing when you don't win, but honestly, it's more important to me. I think it's more important for people to have each round to go through. Each round, that each kind of stage, each competition you do is another performance opportunity that is going to make you less nervous. You know, so let's say you play in front of 200 people. Suddenly, when you play in front of 50 people, it's not that bad. And when you play in front of 20 people, it's like nothing, because you've already had that experience. And in your mind, you think, oh, well, this is totally okay. I can handle this, and that's important. Or so doing that, creating those opportunities for yourself, and not immediately saying, oh, no, I'm not ready. It doesn't matter. Just go for it. That's what I always think. And that's what people mean by just go for the experience of the competition. Yes?
Do you practice slowly?
Do I practice slowly?
Yeah.
Yes. But more importantly, I practice, let's say, a particular passage. Or I think most people like to run through the pieces. And that's bad. That's really bad. That's probably the worst thing you can possibly do. Because I mean, unless you're about to perform. If you run through the piece, if you're about to perform, then you run through the piece. That's okay. But if you're, or at the end of your practicing day, you run through the piece. But individual practicing, and you guys, like, maybe for quartet it's different, but I know for individual practicing, you actually have to practice in a micro-managed way. So let's say, I don't know, a really difficult passage. I haven't played this in a while, so it's and then the second variation is really hard. Okay, so there, I screwed up. That's good. That's what I needed. So I messed up there. So I think, okay, why did I mess up? So I practice that. That's my version of practicing slowly. And then I do it again. And so, okay. So that's the problem right there. I quickly create an anchor in my brain for which note to aim for. I'm going to choose this note. And then I know that I'm shifting after that note. So I'll practice that. I know that I have to cross over there, and my pinky on my left hand is a little bit thin, so it's hard for me to cross over. So now it's this note, the C sharp. I'll create another anchor there, so that I aim for that note as well. There we go. I'll create 3 anchors there. That's fine. And then I'll just run it again just to make sure. So that's how I would practice a section like that. I mean, so you have to, so obviously you have to practice making like anchors like that, and in your mind, the more you practice, the more focus you have, right? So the more anchors you can have in your mind, and the less you're gonna forget. But that means it's important because it means that I'm not focusing on every single note individually. That's impossible. That would be downright silly. But instead, I'm focusing on what to aim for. Like that, like each one. Here, 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 here. Like that. And then that's how I would practice it. Or a shift between 2 notes. I don't know. Like that. I would create an anchor there. So I actually create an anchor in between the note. I think it's harder to create anchors when you do an underslide. So for those you just have to, but those you don't really need one because you kind of slide into it. And it's kind of like doing like if you play soccer, you do like a tackle slide. So I forgot about my anchor just now because I was like too busy talking and like too busy, like I was distracted. So that's not good. So I have to, okay, go back and think about my anchor again. This time, like I made a special effort right as I was about to hit that note to think about the anchor. So it's like that. You actually have to consciously think about stuff like that when you play, and of course think about a million other things. Like, but usually though, it's all right because you have other things to help you too. That's just using your mind and a fraction of your muscle memory. Of course, you can just go. Okay, and then just keep doing it over and over again. I think that's what most students do, is they'll just keep doing it again and again and again, and then, you know, if you're really talented, if you're talented 8 out of 10 times, you're going to get it. Not if you're super talented 9 out of 10 times, but it's never. I mean, you want to decrease the odds of you missing it, right, and increase the odds of you getting it. So the more tricks you have to ensuring that, it's like having extra insurance for the note. So now I have like, I might have a 99.99% hit rate of that note instead of a 90%. So that's just all these things that you kind of, I mean, those two are the main ones that I use. I use also refresh a lot as well. refresh is what I call when you're playing a perpetual passage. So. So what's happening? You probably don't notice it. You definitely don't notice it. But what I'm doing is I'm refreshing. It's like hitting F5 on your keyboard, or F4 is it? I can't remember. But you refresh your mind so that you don't get tongue twisted. So you go. I go refresh. Refresh. There was a refresh there. I'll stomp my foot every single time I refresh. I should have refreshed there. See, like that's the kind of thing, because I'm trying to think, oh, should I refresh or not? But usually it's safer to refresh a lot because my CPU doesn't have a lot of memory and I can't handle too much, like for too long an extended period. Yes?
Have you ever tried to do the original bowing on that? Because I'm playing it too and I can't do it at all.
But, okay, like, why would you want to do the original bowing?
I can't.
I mean, whatever, something like that, right? It just gives me like But I mean, honestly, who are you trying to impress? Does your girlfriend play violin? So what does it matter? It's the girl you're chasing playing violin. Oh. She plays piano. Yeah, well, I mean, maybe you should learn the piano version of that bowing, and then she would be like, oh, well, that's something, because nobody's got... Okay, yeah. Because, I mean, that kind of thing, it's much... There's so many violinistic things that are impressive. You know what's so impressive to people when they think about violin? It's repeated notes. When you like think about like in jazz, it's like, and the people are like, and it's like the easiest lick, and people are like, oh yeah, that's so cool. Or like when you do it's all about like, oh, I don't know, like and like think about the charts, Monty, right? When you like if you play it like that, it's like okay, but if you play you have to like just like do more, like that's more impressive, I think, than to like, and you know, make the little face and like, yeah, like yeah, fire, and stuff like that. That's like, I think that's more exciting than like trying to do like, I mean, that just sounds like. Never mind. It's just like, that just, I mean, I don't know. I think I would be much more impressed by it. You know, it's just much more engaging. So you got to think about the musical sacrifice you have to make in order to make a bowing that maybe 2 people in the audience will be impressed by. And, you know, will definitely make it a much more stressful performance for you, and you might mess up because of that. So, you wouldn't mess up. Whoa, well, Mr. Smarty Pants, come on stage and let's see it. But, you know, but you know, I know that I would definitely pee my pants if I knew that I was going to do that. And then I would probably mess up really badly in the middle, and that would cause me to be in such a bad mood that I would totally just screw up my arpeggios at the end. I'd be like, totally like that, and I'd just go home and cry and have my ice cream. I mean, nobody wants that. This is just, I don't want that either. So you know, I just wouldn't do it. But good luck. I hope you get that girl. I hope she's really impressed. Let me know about it. Write to me on Facebook.
Thank you so much. Let's hear.